Hey everyone, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold here with our weekly lecture series. Today's topic is Great Players of the Present, Maxime Vachier Lagrave, also known as MVL. Easier to say than Maxime Vachier Lagrave. I want to thank our sponsor who says, happy birthday to Charlie. That's the sponsor's message. MVL is... in fact, let me... I have to share the screen just a second. Sorry about that, YouTube people, but we had some thing I did do for the live audience. Forgot to share the screen. MVL has a long Wikipedia article, obviously, because of the great chess that he's played. You can see here, talks about a lot of his tournaments and candidates and Grand Chess Tour and all kinds of rapid and blitz tournaments and matches, team tournaments, etc. But I actually was one of the first people on the MVL bandwagon, so I'm glad we have a sponsor for this lecture. Maxime is from France, which isn't surprising, and he's been best player in France for quite a long time until recently when Ali Reza Firouzja changed his country he represents to France. Oh, that was about 3 years ago, I guess. Although I'm guessing. I guess in the YouTube chat we're going to find out that it wasn't 3 years ago, but it's about 3 years ago. And Maxime and Firouzja usually have around the same FIDE rating. But before Firouzja, Maxime was clearly the best player in France. And if France ever gets all of their good players to play in the Olympic team, they'll have a good Olympic team. But getting Firouzja and MVL and Etienne Bacrot and other top French players to play in the Olympic team isn't so easy sometimes. MVL's been the World Blitz champion. His peak rating makes him the 7th highest rated player in history. His peak rating was 28.19. He's not at his peak right now. He's currently 34 years old, born in France. A lot of the French grandmasters were not born in France, so he's different in that ilk. As I was saying, I was a big MVL fan before he was really famous because he plays for the win, whether he's white or black. He plays very sharp theory, very complicated positions. He likes those. He doesn't care who he's playing, as you'll find out in the lecture today. He's playing for win against everybody, including the absolute best players in the world. He was World Junior Champion in 2009. He's won many tournaments in Europe and across the world. He played in a lot of the world under and European under tournaments when he was a kid, so he was a well-known prodigy. He came third in the under 10, came third in the under 12, second in the under 14, third in the under 16 in the World Youth Championships. His FIDE rating got higher and higher as he was a kid until he finally got to 2,700 and then later 2,800. His Wikipedia article talks about a lot of his successes, as you can see. It scrolls. Somebody who really likes MVL must have made his Wikipedia page because he has a lot of tournaments listed and a lot of references. MVL's been one of the top 10 or 15 players in the world for the last 12 years or so. Anyway, you could read more about him on Wikipedia and other places on the web. I'd like to go right into his games if I could, because those are what's interesting about MVL. Since I'm giving the lecture, I'll tell you a funny story. I was in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago at the Esports World Cup, which MVL participated in. And we didn't get to see the players very much. However, at the airport on the way home in Saudi Arabia, I did see MVL there waiting for his flight to Paris. I think he was on the same flight I was. I flew to Paris and then to Atlanta. And he was with somebody, I guess his coach or second or somebody. And I said hi to him as I walked by. I don't know if he said hi or ignored me or what he did. I don't remember. Something I should remember. Anyway, I've known Maxime for a long time, and I played a blitz match against him where people were betting on the side. Although it wasn't a blitz match, it was a bullet match. It was 1 minute each. And I won the first game, and we played the first to get 5 points. He won the next 4. Then the next 2 games, I won on time with 1 second left each game. So he was up 4-3. And then the last game, he crushed me. So he won 5-3. And the people that bet on him, they won money. If I'm ever playing a match with MVL, it's a good idea to bet on him. So, and I told the guy who was betting on me not to do it, but he didn't listen. As most people don't listen when I suggest things. Okay, so the first game was suggested by the sponsor. It's a rather famous game. Alexander Morozevich, another uncompromising player, versus MVL. MVL's black. This was played in Biel in 2009. I was at Biel once. What year was I in Biel? I was at Biel in 1993, I think. Unless I'm wrong. Then it wasn't 93. I think it was 93. Okay, so they played a sharp Najdorf Sicilian, which we're also going to see in the second game. This is the Najdorf, and MVL could have white or black at this position, but MVL likes playing the Najdorf. So if you play e4 against MVL, he's typically going to play this way with black. Now, I'm hoping that the lecture doesn't end with this game, because this game is going to take a long time to talk about. So I'll get through it as quickly as I can, but this game is super complicated, and you would need a team of engines to fully understand what's going on in this game. Okay, they played a lot of theory, a lot of prep. This is the English attack, one of the most potent lines against the Najdorf. G4, long castle, B4, and white plays on the king side, black plays on the queen side. Typical kind of Najdorf. And this is all theory and preparation. So we can analyze, but basically the players have analyzed this at home with their coaches and their computers beforehand. I did a little snooping myself to see what the computers say. And basically, this whole game is the computer likes white. Then white makes some mistakes, and the computer says it's equal. Then white makes more mistakes, and the computer says MVL's winning. And once the computer says MVL's winning, he's winning the rest of the game. Although when he's winning is not easy to understand. Okay, he played e5, forking the knights. Oh, give me the knights. And you might say, wow, why did white allow this? And the answer is, this is preparation. The engine says white's better. So that's why white allowed this. Knight e6, that's the correct move. And what happens is white sacrifices material, and black's king. Well, we have a critic in the audience. I don't know if you heard that thunder or not. Black's king is sort of not good. There's good and there's not good. Black's king is not good. Okay, so he sacrifices a piece, although it's all prep. Queen a5, e takes d5. Queen takes a2, black's a piece up, and black's threatening mate in 1. So it sounds good. Although knight on e6 is sort of annoying. Okay, white plays queen d3 with 2 ideas. The main idea is to not get mated. So queen a1 check runs into king d2. White wants to play knight c7 check. White wants to play queen g6 check, etc. Mainly etc. Okay, so MVL plays king f7. I don't know when MVL's prep ended. It's possible that he's still in prep, but the engine likes white. Now g5, knight takes d5, and again, we can't be too materialistic in this position because black's already a piece up and white's playing for an attack. So trading down something like this doesn't make any sense. Now black's up a piece and white is traded queens, so that's not what white wants. Okay, so he played bishop h3. The engine agrees. I don't know if Morozevich is still in his prep, but the engine likes the way Alexander's playing. Okay, knight takes e3. The engine doesn't like that move, so I assume that MVL's out of his prep. Knight d8 check. The engine likes that move. Knight c6 check. Black's king goes for a walk. G6 check. King g8. So I'm basically retired from chess, but occasionally I'll play in a tournament, but I'm just kidding. And one of the reasons to retire from chess is so you don't have positions like this, which make you want to retire. And when you're a different person from me, which is everybody, like MVL, you thrive on these kinds of positions. MVL and Morozevich are probably both happy now because black's up a lot of material, but black's rook is trapped, the king is close to checkmated, other pieces haven't moved yet, knight on e3 is hanging. If this queen wasn't here, bishop e6 would be checkmate. Knight's attacked. Okay, I retire from chess because I don't want these kinds of positions. I know that if I have these positions, I'll be thinking 30 minutes every move, and I'll either lose on time or hang mate in 1. Exactly, and we got more criticism there. Okay, so white has a lot of compensation for 2 pieces. The question is, should white be threatening checkmate every move, or should white start taking some of these pieces back? And the answer is, I don't know. The only one who does know is the engine. Okay, and the engine's not talking. Okay, so white played queen takes knight. So now black's only 1 piece ahead. Bishop c5, attacking the queen. Queen e4. Knight f8. Black wants to trade off bishops. Black wants to trade pieces. Black's up a piece. Doesn't want to get checkmated. Rook d8. The engine agrees. Bishop b7. Now in this position, the engine does say that Morozevich is winning the way that he played, but it says he's more winning if he takes on f8, sacrificing the exchange. Then queen takes e5, threatening bishop e6, which wins the queen and mates. It does both. And even though black is up a rook in this position, the engine says white's winning. Okay, and Sasha, as we call Morozevich because his first name's Alex, Sasha plays another way, which the engine says is also winning. Rook takes the rook. Bishop takes. H5. So the reason white plays H5 is it defends the G6 pawn, so that's good. But also, black would have played H5 soon, and then rook H6, and then gotten his kingside pieces out. So H5 like closes in on black's kingside. Okay, now again, you can't just take material in chess when you're getting mated. So for example, if you're materialistic and you're like, why doesn't black just take this rook? I like taking rooks. Okay, then you get checkmated. And if you don't like that checkmate, this will also be checkmate. So you can't, you can't just be materialistic when your king is on G8 and it has nowhere to go. And this queen is doing a good job stopping white's diagonal pieces from checkmating black's king. Okay, black played a very famous move in this position. Played rook H7. And the idea is we want to get rid of the G6 pawn so our king isn't getting mated all the time. And now we have the H8 square for our king. Now, that rook's not going anywhere. The pawn on G6 is still a monster. So it actually makes sense for white not to take the rook, because you can take the rook later if you want. But right now you don't really want to. So he played rook E1, just defending his rook. Bishop takes. Queen takes. Bishop D4. Again, black's queen is doing a good job on the diagonal. The knight is defending E6. And MVL starts the counterattack against Morozevich's king. King D2 takes. And if this rook was on H8, then this would just win for white. White could play bishop E6 check. But now black can play king H8 because MVL played rook H7, giving his king the H8 square. Okay. So white played queen C4 check, and the engine doesn't like that move. King H8, king to D3, and if black tries to go into some endgame, I can take the rook, and rook is going to go win the pawn, and white's going to have a much better ending with a better king and extra exchange. So he plays the move A5. This is very funny because A5 may seem absurdly slow in such a position, but actually the A pawn gives white fits. This pawn just queens. And so if white doesn't checkmate black, then black's going to just queen the A pawn. Okay, so queen C8, threatening mate. Queen A3 check. Advance the king in the endgame. And then B3 is forced, defending the knight on F8. He takes it. And then A4. Trying to open up the 6th rank for the... Now, if I was white, I would take the pawn. The engine says this position's equal. How could this position be equal? Then it says black should play bishop F2, attacking the rook. Black has a lot of checks with the queen, so probably the engine sees perpetual checks everywhere. So he played rook b1. Queen b4 is the engine move. Queen c4. White wants to go into the winning endgame because black really doesn't have a rook here. Check. And in this position, obviously, if MVL wanted to, he could repeat, which he just did. And he decided to play for a win because he's MVL. That's what MVL does. He plays for a win. And I'm sure Morozevich, who also always plays for a win, was happy because he didn't want the game to end in a draw when it was so exciting. So instead of queen b7 check, he plays queen d2, going after the white king. Bishop g4. Otherwise, black would check and then take on f3 would check. Then the bishop's hanging. So now everything's h pawn's defended, f pawn's defended, everything's defended. Bishop's defended. Okay, a3 exclamation mark. Now black has good winning chances because black's a pawn is too strong. Queen f7, threatening mate again. Queen check. Queen check, defending the knight. And then a2. I told you that a pawn was going to be strong. Shocking the world. Okay, the rook moves away. It's hoping for queen takes rook, checkmate. So instead, MVL made another queen. It's got two queens, one for each of you. And now, black is up a rook and a knight, although the rook on h7 isn't very good. And finally, black trades queens. And eventually, white's going to have to take that rook. But he doesn't. And then he gives away his knight instead, so his rook can get out. But it's still difficult for black to win because black's rook has to stay on the h8 pawn. So he runs his king up to win the b pawn. And white says, how are you going to win? If you move your rook away from my h pawn, I'll queen my h pawn. Otherwise, what is he to do? So he moves his king a lot, finally moves his rook. And the problem that white has is by keeping the rook on the back rank and using the three pieces to move the king into a checkmating attack, white's going to have to move the bishop so white's king doesn't get checkmated. White's going to keep the king in a place that won't get checkmated. And unfortunately for white, once white moves the bishop, black has the move g5, and the bishop is defending against the promotion. So you can see how that's going to happen. Finally, he moves his bishop. For example, if he plays king here, then I play bishop e5. And you're going to get checkmated pretty soon. Now you just get checkmated. If you move your bishop now, I have check and mate. Okay, so instead, he plays bishop f7, and then MVL plays g5. You take on passant, but now the bishop is defending against the pawns promoting. So the rook is free to move wherever it wants. And now white resigned. Black's going to play king here, and then rook to b8 checkmate. If you play here, then this is mate right away. If you move your bishop, I play here, and then I play checkmate. The engine says it's like mate in 8 because it starts giving away its pawns so that there's like, you can stave off mate for a few moves. So that was one of the most interesting games, mainly because MVL played rook h7 and ended up that's the rook that he played rook h7 with. He never got it captured, so his king was trapped on the king side. And the game is basically too complicated for humans, so the engines are like making fun of the humans. The engines are like, white's winning, this is terrible. Then the engine's like, this is equal, it's all zeros. Then the engine says black's winning. But if you're a human playing another human, you don't know any of that. You just have these crazy positions and you're trying to do the best you can. And it's good for the audience, and that's why I've always been a big fan of MVL. This game was played in 2009 when Maxime wasn't even top 20 in the world. In fact, Morozevich was almost 50 rating points higher rated at the time. But this is the style, this is the kind of chess MVL plays, so it's easy to root for. He has a lot of fans because he doesn't play the Berlin with black and then try to make a draw and then play the Queen's Gambit decline with white and try to get a slight advantage and win. He doesn't play that way. He plays super sharp, complicated chess where both players are going to make a mistake or two mistakes or more, and the game's really interesting for the audience. The audience has rights. Okay, now the next game, also against a higher rated player. In fact, I don't think I've ever done this ever. I think this is my first lecture where the person I'm lecturing on only beats people higher rated than him. I think I've done a lot of lectures, and usually the person I'm lecturing on is, top 10 in the world, top 20 in the world, which is the case here. But MVL has a lot of wins against people who are higher rated than himself. This is against Fabiano Caruana. This was played in Tata Steel in 2015. MVL's rating was pretty high, 2757, pretty good FIDE rating. But Fabiano was 2820. God damn. Okay, so that's even higher. Okay, they played a Najdorf again because MVL's black, so it's going to be a Najdorf. That's the rules. If you don't like the rules, you're watching the wrong lecture. Okay, he played h3, putting it in h, one of the many moves against the Najdorf. e5, attacking the knight. Knight goes to e2. The knight could go anywhere. And he puts it in h because white's going to play g4 and then knight g3 and play on the king side. And MVL says, no, you're not going to play g4 against me. So he plays h5, g3, and they develop their pieces. a4, stopping b5. MVL gets all his pieces out. Rook c8, gets his rook on the half-open file. Knight b6, the knight wants to go to c4. I guess the knight's not going to go to c4 because white played b3. And d5. d5 is a pawn sacrifice that gets the two bishops. When I say it's a pawn sacrifice, the pawn is defended sufficiently, but white, if he wants to win a pawn, can take the knight on b6, which gets rid of two of black's defenders. Otherwise, black's threatening d4. If you take on d5, black just takes back and is better. So white has to accept the pawn sacrifice. And he does. And black gets the two bishops. And, I mean, if I was playing, I would take white because I like being up a pawn. And white has a passed d pawn. Although I do like the two bishops. Okay, c4. So white's position looks excellent, except black totally dominates the dark squares. Black has a dark squared bishop, and white doesn't. And white's pawns are all on white squares, so black's bishop is going to do a lot of damage. Queen d6, blockading everything. f5, here comes the kingside attack. h4, MVL attacks on the king side. g4, MVL castles, defending his f-pawn. Knight c3. Fabiano's waiting for this capture, so he has e4 completely dominated. But MVL wants the e4 square, so he plays e4. Bishop d8. He's going to move the bishop around to the queen side. Going to play bishop c7, and then queen h2 mate with advantage. Also, the rook is defending the pawn. You don't want to give the pawn away, so the rook is tied down to the pawn's defense. The bishop's going to c7. Bishop takes e4. Fabiano sacrifices a piece. Gets a lot of pawns. And they go into an ending where white has 3 pawns for a piece, but black has 2 bishops. Here comes the pawns. And now bishop b5 attacking the rook. b4 sacrificing the exchange. And then black sacrifices the exchange. So in this position, it's not easy for black to do anything. White has 3 pawns for a rook, and black's pieces can't, do anything. So instead of taking, he sacrifices the exchange. You can't take with a pawn, because now you're down 2 bishops. That's too much. The rook on f8 is defending the bishop. So you have to take with the king. Rook e8, and the king is caught in a mating net. I'm threatening bishop takes c5 check, bishop takes b4. So he plays king f4, g5 check, king f7, stopping the white king from moving up. Now we want to play bishop d3 check, rook e1, bishop d3. If you play king e5, bishop c5 is checkmate, confusing my students. That is a very unusual checkmate, but it's checkmate nonetheless. So he plays rook e4. Again, he doesn't take the pinned rook. He plays bishop f6. Now, some of you might think black's threatening bishop takes rook. Actually, black has a better threat, which is rook e5 checkmate. And you guys aren't as good as Fabi, so you can't stop the rook e5 mate. But Fabi stopped it because he's 2,800. Only 2,800 players can stop rook e5 checkmate. How did he stop it? That's right, he resigned. Another way to stop it is f4, and then this is mate. But rook e5 mate is the threat, and the only defense is to resign. Black has the 2 bishops, crushing the 2 rooks. A brilliant game from MVL, as per usual. Okay, now, let's see, how do I flip the board? That's how. Now, Morozevich and Fabi, those guys aren't so good, are they? Well, if you don't think those guys are good, how about Magnus Carlsen in 2023? That sounds like a good opponent. This is MVL versus Magnus. Now, how does MVL beat Magnus? Does MVL play boring and go into a slightly better middle game and then outplay him and go into a big endgame advantage and then somehow win in 70 moves? No. That's not how MVL beats people. That's how he would beat me. In fact, MVL did beat me when we played in the Pro Chess League. I actually had a good position. And then I didn't have a good position. Then it sucked. Man. Okay, so MVL's white. He's playing Magnus Carlsen, 2013. They play the Cond, William Shatner's favorite variation of the Sicilian. Play sort of a hedgehog system. NVL plays very aggressively with white. So far, so good. Knight d4, takes, knight e4, knight f5, rook f3. Here comes the rook attack. Bishop takes e4, bishop takes, knight e3. Okay, and I could have started the game from this position, but I wanted to show you how this position occurred. Now, white has many ways to sack the exchange, but none of them are any good. And there's something more important than sacking the exchange, and that's sacking more. Roar! Yeah, if you're going to beat Magnus, complicated tactics is one way to try to do it. Because positional play usually isn't, it's not how you beat Magnus. Magnus has a nice knight on e3. Magnus has a nice pawn on d4 that's passed. So positionally, Magnus is doing well. On the other hand, we have a bishop attacking h7. The rook can go to h3. The queen can go to h5. Unfortunately, our rook's attacked. But that doesn't stop MVL from calculating. And I think this was a rapid tournament. So I think both players started with between 15 and 25 minutes. And now MVL sacrificed his bishop. That's more than sacrificing the exchange. Rook h3. Obviously, king g6 fails miserably to queen h5 mate. So king g8, queen h5. Now, obviously, Magnus saw this position when he played knight e3, and you see that white's threatening queen h7 mate and queen h8 mate, which means black has to move his f-pawn. Never play f6, so he played f5. And Magnus probably thought black was winning here because it seems like white's attack's over. But MVL saw further. Queen h7. Now, if you're watching on YouTube after the fact, which is 99.9% of you, pause your video and try to find the move that MVL played here with white. Let's see, we have Charlie watching live. Do you see what white can do in this position? Sort of an unusual move. I think our only viewer fell asleep during the lecture. That's the only reasonable explanation. Or he forgot he was muted. Oh wait, we have a chat. Let's see here. Okay, our chatter says rook g3. That's sort of the obvious move. Then black could play rook g8. It's rook... Whoa. It's rook h6. Now white wants to play either rook f6 check or queen g6 check. Okay, Magnus, still trying to win, plays queen takes c4, defending his e-pawn. Rook f6 check. King e8. Queen takes g7. And this is a funny position because white has obvious threat. Rook takes rook checkmate. And black doesn't have a good way to stop it. And like Fabi, Magnus stopped it by resigning. So queen takes c4 was a big blunder on Magnus's part. If he plays queen c5, we have rook takes e6. You can't let me take on f8 with mate. So the other move is to take. Now I'm threatening mate, and I'm also threatening f7, f8, queen. If you play rook d7, queen g8 is mate. And if you play queen c5 to stop queen e7 mate, then I check, and then I check. And white's up a queen. So after queen g7, there's no good move for Magnus, so Magnus resigned. So that was a brilliant win from MVL against Magnus, sacrificing a piece, rook f6 check, and just attacking full force. Magnus must have miscalculated something because this position is completely lost and he resigned. Now, I think, unless I'm wrong, I think black can get away with knight takes and it's probably a draw. If he goes here, this is checkmate. But king here would be a repetition. And if he checks here, I don't think white has enough here to keep checkmating. King d7 should be okay. So probably Magnus had the draw and played for the win with queen takes c4 and then had to resign in 2 moves. Not Magnus's best game, but when you put pressure on people, then they tend to fold. So that's Magnus losing to MVL. MVL with 3 wins in this lecture of higher rated players. I encourage all of you to look at a lot of MVL's best games. He has really exciting games. And I want to thank our sponsor and wish Charlie a happy birthday. That's the sponsor's message. If you'd like to sponsor a lecture, contact my wife Karen. Her details are in the description of the video. Please like and subscribe to the video and stay tuned for more weekly lectures. Great players of the present, MVL. MVL's my MVP. Thanks again to our sponsor. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.